Bedtime Stories. January 1, a New Year's party. Just because it was the first day of the year, commenced Daddy, and because parties were about the nicest things in the world to the mind of a little girl named Ella, her mother decided to give her one. "It certainly does seem like the first of the year, or the first of something," said Ella. "It's a new day, a new year, and we have new toys and new games. We are even going to have supper out of new dishes, for among the presents Santa Claus had brought to Ella was a fine set of dishes. They were pink and white, and there were 6 cups and saucers, 6 little plates, a teapot, sugar bowl, and cream jug. It was really a very complete set. They had thin bread and butter, hot chocolate with whipped cream, and a cake which Ella's mother called a New Year's cake. It was pink and white on the top, with pink sugared trimmings on the white frosting. In the center of the cake was one pink candle, for Ella's mother said it would be quite impossible to have a candle for the number of years there had been, and 2, it would be nice to have a new way and just consider the year a day old. After the cake had been almost entirely eaten, they played house. Each little girl took a corner of the room as her house and fixed it up with some of Ella's things. They all had their own dolls and many of their other toys, so they really felt quite at home. Then they began calling on each other, dressing up in shawls and old hats, which Ella's mother let them use. After a while they heard a flutter, flutter against the window pane, and then another little flapping sound. "It's a little bird," said Ella as she looked out of the window. "It's right on the sill, and I'm dreadfully afraid it has hurt its wings. Poor little dear." They opened the window, and Ella took the little bird in her hands. Oh, how cold the little bird's feathers were! "We'll take care of you," said Ella. They gave the little bird some breadcrumbs and some water. Then he had a delicious piece of lettuce from the seeds which Ella had started in a box in her room. Pretty soon the bird began to grow much better and hopped and chirped about the room, and then they let him out, for he had simply been very hungry. "We'll put some suet in that tree over there," said Ella. "Let's put some breadcrumbs," said her friends, and then one of them added, "And let's give some of the New Year cake crumbs too." So the little bird was given a regular New Year's feast, and Ella and her friends were among other children who decided to look after the feathered people through the cold months of the winter, and to give them breadcrumbs and suet, which they love so well. January 2. The Rhyming Years. "Well," said the old year, "I am going to make up a poem about myself. I feel quite poetical." "And," said the new year, "I will too." For the new year didn't want to have the old year think that he was unable to do anything like that, even though he was young. But he felt very much pleased when the old year said, "Though I have lived 12 whole months, I have not become a poet." "I think age should be given the right to speak first," said the new year. The old year shook his white hair and smiled so that the wrinkles in his face all ran in together. This is what he said. "Yes, it is true I was feeling old. Yes, it is true I was also cold. Yes, it is true I heard them cheer, welcoming in the glad new year." Then New Year recited this verse. "Of course, you see, I was out for fun. My life has only just begun. They said, 'He is young and full of vim. No one can help but welcome him.' You mustn't think I am conceited," he added. "I say a lot to make my rhyme come out right." "Of course," said the old year, "for I do too. Well, I will give my second verse. Don't believe it all, though." Then the old year took an old harp he had, and he began to play and sing, and this was what he sang. And poor old year, he almost wept, as he packed up his things and left. But as he turned to say goodbye, something in him made him cry. "Though my work is mostly done, I have too had lots of fun. And ere I go upon my way, this I certainly would say. Happy New Year, big and small. Happy New Year, short and tall. Happy New Year, every one. May you all have lots of fun." January 3. Naughty Wind. "The clothespins on the line," said Daddy, "were having a very jolly time." "I'll blew those clothes away," said the north wind. "Oh, no, you won't," said the clothespins in chorus. "You are only little wooden things," said the wind. "I am strong and powerful and can do just exactly as I like." Now the fairies saw that the clothespins were doing their work so well that they thought they would like to help them. So they all perched on the line and began to sing. Hey ho, let the north wind blow. The clothespins and we will certainly see that the clothes will stay here. The day's nice and clear, the sun's good and strong, and the wind is quite wrong to try such a trick, but the clothespins will stick. The clothespins did stick to the line, and the fairies helped them, singing all the time. The wind kept on blowing and tried his hardest to get the better of the fairies, but he had no luck at all, and the clothespins won. January 4. The selfish oyster crabs. You know, I think oyster crabs are perhaps the most selfish of all the sea animals, began Daddy. The oyster crabs really belong to the crab family. They are called oyster crabs, however, because above all things they love the juice of an oyster and absolutely live on it. And what I am going to tell you about now is the way they get it. First of all, the oyster crab hovers around the oysters and then picks out a nice, fat, juicy-looking oyster, saying to himself, "You look as if you could feed me well without any effort. I think I will crawl into your shell." So then he crawls right inside the oyster's shell and proceeds to enjoy himself. He prefers just to sponge on others, as the expression goes. January 5. Brownie's toothache. Going to the dentist's always frightened Evelyn. "Dear me," said Daddy, "I think I will have to tell you about the Brownie's trip to the dentist, for I think his case was very similar to yours." This little Brownie had had a toothache which had bothered him for some time, but he dreaded to go to the dentist's just the way you do. One day, though, it got awfully painful, and he felt he could stand it no longer. He went right off to see the Brownie dentist. He was a very clever dentist and very kind and gentle. He got a pair of pullers, and after a moment or two, Dr. Brownie said, "Well, here's the old toothache." "What, my tooth already out?" said the little Brownie, "and to think of all I've suffered before I came to you." January 6. The Pink Cockatoo. On the morning of the birthday of a little girl named Natalie, said Daddy, a pink cockatoo was ready to greet her when she awoke. Well, you can imagine how happy Natalie was, and she kept saying over and over again, "Oh, how lovely you are." The cockatoo would raise up his pink crest on the top of his head at that, just as some people raise up their foreheads, only his crest went way, way higher. He did that whenever he felt like it, and he always felt like it when he was being talked to. And after a very short time, the cockatoo was just as tame as could be, and he seemed to grow more beautiful every day. Before long, he began to talk just as a parrot will, and follow Natalie around the house. He had his food out of special little pink dishes Natalie had given him to match his pink feathers, and every morning he took his bath in a pink soup bowl, which he thought was very fine indeed. Maybe you will think he got spoiled by so much fussing and attention, but he just became tamer and tamer every day. He learned many tricks and would often perform them for Natalie's friends. And when it came time for Natalie's next birthday, she gave a party. On the invitation, it said the party was being given by Natalie and the Pink Cockatoo, and in one corner was a little colored drawing Natalie had made of her cockatoo. When the cockatoo saw it, he put his crest way up in the air and said in a funny voice, "Goody, Natalie," which was his pet name for his mistress. And this is a truly true story, you know. "Once there was an old lady," said Daddy, "who lived all alone. One day, though, she went to town and bought a pet monkey. She named him Niles. He was only 7 inches long and had a curly tail. He was a very dark gray color. He proved to be a most expensive pet, for he liked all the most delicious fruits and would only eat his bread and rice when plenty of rich cream was poured over it. What fascinated him above all was the old lady's rings. When the old lady saw how fond Niles was of jewels, she took out her jewel box. Niles had the most glorious time playing with its contents. He decorated himself with all the beads and chains and bangles and looked at himself in the mirror. He shook all over, for he liked the noise as well as the glitter of the jewels. So the old lady was very, very happy with her pet monkey. Niles was delighted with his new home and his new mistress, for he had never had jewels to play with in the animal shop.